Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers here at SF Indie Fest Green Film Festival of San Francisco. Really excited to have you here in this wacky weird world that we have. We're lucky enough to, you've just seen one of our opening night films, Don't Feed the Coyotes, which has a cool local vibe. And we're lucky enough to have the director, Nick Stone Shearer, here with us. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me.
Yeah, most definitely. I was really excited when I had ran across this film because with the kind of ever-growing presence of coyotes in the Bay Area, in particular San Francisco, it just kind of had piqued my interest, and then just really liked the kind of storytelling craft you brought to the film. How did you kind of first hear about the subject matter, and then how did you know that you had kind of a documentary that you just needed to make?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, if you live in San Francisco or probably anywhere really in the Bay Area, and you could argue anywhere around the country, coyotes and sort of coyote conflict, it's a story that pops up in local news, certainly in SF Gate or the Chronicle or, Berkeley side, Oakland side. Like you hear about it from time to time. I'm out in Orinda on the other side of the Oakland Hills, and you hear about it in Lafayette, Moraga. It's just wherever you go, you people tend to kind of their ears tend to perk up a little bit about this story, and whether people are afraid of coyotes or they're excited about coyotes or they're not sure what to think. So it kept coming up, and I would run into coyotes, whether I was in a park in the city or in the hills in Oakland or Berkeley. And so it was one of these things that kept coming up. And so one day I decided I'm just going to like do a deep dive and learn more about this. And that was when I came across a story that quoted Janet Kessler. And if you just saw the film, you could imagine why, immediately I thought, hey, like I should reach out to her and talk about doing a story.
Very cool. And what was the kind of approach that you took to kind of pulling together these stories, in the sense that did you spend kind of a lot of time? Was there a lot of patience involved, or were there ways that you were kind of able to direct it to kind of help kind of pull together the different kind of both animal and human characters that you wanted to feature?
Sure. Yeah. I think there definitely was a lot of patience, some of which was planned, some of which was not. I think one of the things I didn't expect about this project that has definitely changed how I think I'm going to look at making films in the future is it was a local story, and it was something that all I had to do was cross a bridge to go film. And so the patience sort of came with that, because I didn't have a flight out, on Tuesday. I didn't have a set schedule. I didn't have to book a ticket and organize all sorts of things every time I wanted to go shoot and check in with the participants, human or otherwise. And so in the beginning, I didn't expect to be doing that. I didn't expect to be filming for several years on this. But as I got to know Janet better, and as I met John and David and Ben Sachs, and as I started to learn about all the different coyotes across the city, I realized there was a lot of value in just kind of sticking with it and observing them over time, and seeing what happened in their lives. And because it was local, and because I didn't have to do a whole lot other than mobilize myself at 5 a.m, I could do that. And so, yeah. And then I kind of just stuck with, following Janet's lead and John and David's lead, as far as how to kind of follow the coyotes themselves.
And you mentioned about surprises. It seemed like you kind of went in with an open mind. Were there any kind of like presumptions or ideas that you had about coyotes that kind of changed or evolved, or even like, what do you think the kind of takeaway from the film is? Because obviously the coyotes are kind of here to stay, and how might us kind of city dwellers grow to kind of accept them and not be so afraid?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, I went into it saying like, wow, this is this like huge study in contrast. This misfit coyote doesn't belong here. And as a filmmaker or someone who's making images, we're drawn to that. We're drawn to contrast. We're drawn to things that stand out. And the more time I spent on it, the more I realized, certainly in the eyes of these coyotes, they don't stand out. This is for the most part, where they were born. It's the world they know, just like it's the world you and I know. And so I think that that was a big evolution in my understanding, and sort of, I think, we, like exemplified my journey in this, which was sort of breaking down the barriers that we put up between, you know, the human world and the non-human world. Obviously, it's just there's one world, right? So, and then yeah, I mean, as far as how we coexist with them, I think it's, for me, it was just helpful to understand them and see how they go about their lives, and what they're motivated by. And in doing that, it was clear, like one of the guys says in the beginning of the film, like they're just kind of want to do their thing, go about their business. And so if we stay out of their way, for the most part, they'll stay out of ours, you know?
Nice. It's been a few weeks since I saw the film, but I just remember, do you, about how many coyotes do they imagine are kind of like in San Francisco area?
Yeah, so it fluctuates, because it basically, it's based on how many, breeding pairs there are, right? So most parks that have a, some dense wooded area and are, not tiny little squares, Golden Gate Park, Twin Peaks, Bernal, certainly
Tortilla
others,
Bluff.
they have, they all have breeding pairs. And so I think the last number that I heard was, you might have 10 to 12 breeding pairs. Um, and so that means, okay, you could have 20 to 24 coyotes, but then in spring, each one of those breeding pairs, you may have three, four, five, six more coyotes, pups, who, will be around, but not, most of them not for particularly long time. So the number really does, like, it goes
Mm.
up and down, but yeah, a couple dozen to, you know 50 maybe, but I'm not the expert on that. So, I always like to check in with John or David or Janet to get a up to date, number.
Very nice. And yeah, the other thing I was going to ask you, do you think you'll make another film involving wildlife again? There's always that kind of Hollywood maxim of not working with children and animals, you know? Do you think now that given your kind of your documentary background and things, do you think you might do another wildlife film again, or was it kind of one-off for you?
It's a great question. It's something I think about. I think the more you get into your career as a filmmaker, the more you think about what you're going to make. Whereas earlier on, at least for me, you kind of just, you don't even know what you're doing. You don't think about what you're doing. You go for it. And that was kind of what happened with this. And so now, yeah, now I think about it more. I'm like, hey, where do I go from here? What I liked about this was that it's wildlife, but it's wildlife in a city, and it's wildlife through people's eyes. And so I'd love to find another story that, whether it's wildlife or another aspect of sort of natural systems, and that part of the world and thinking, but that does it in a way that it really ties in you and me and like the average person who probably lives in a city or lives in a suburb, because I think so much of wildlife filmmaking is going out into a distant place and capturing some really really incredible footage of things that you and I will never see. And that's awesome. But what I'm drawn towards is, something that just makes it a little bit more tangible, and helps us kind of wrestle with the complicated situation we're in. you know
Well said. Well, thanks again for taking the time and sharing your film with us. What's their best way to kind of continue to follow your filmmaking, and also even some of the kind of research being done about the coyotes?
Yeah, great. Well, Janet and John, Janet Kessler, who's the one of the main participants in the film, she's on Instagram and has a great blog, Coyote Yips. Jonathan Young and David Harrelson at the Presidio. So you can follow the Presidio. You can go over to the Presidio if you want to learn more about coyotes, or just general, urban wildlife. They do a lot of great programming. And then Ben Sachs at UC Davis is also doing some interesting research. He has some grad students doing work with Janet on the genetics of coyotes in San Francisco, and that's ongoing. So you can look that up. It's the Mammalian Ecology and Conservation Unit at UC Davis. And you can look at probably all this, as well as find me online, either at don'tfeedthecoyotes.com or at my own personal website, which is Nick Stone Shearer. or under the same handle on Instagram, and try to keep it somewhat up to date.
Awesome, cool. Well, thanks again for making the film, Nick, and sharing it with us here at the Green Film Festival, San Francisco.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. It is really exciting to be screening this in San Francisco and to the San Francisco community. Obviously, it was shot here, and I think this and all these stories you guys are programmed are going to be inspirational and educating to people, and it's certainly what we could all use and need. So, thanks for including.
Awesome. We try to do things a little bit different with our little environmental film festival here, and just was really excited to have you as part of the program.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thanks.